I follow up on, key influencers on LinkedIn and, look for things that are in their comments that I can, expand upon that maybe they didn't cover, but I'd always do it and, use a prompt to respond in a complimentary tone, you know. You want to be able to provide a compliment for them in a way that
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars. That's what our guest today has guaranteed. All right, maybe I heard him wrong in the bio, but the first person that says they can do that, then I'll know that I'm doing my job. But who we have today is somebody who has accomplished a lot, and what I find even more impressive, continues to elevate his game. And this is after spending his entire professional career in sales and in publishing. Al Kushner, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here too. So look, folks, again, we've got somebody who has been sales publishing a big old success and has turned a corner also in regards to being a published author. Al's groundbreaking book, The AI LinkedIn Advantage. Unleashing the power of AI and dominate the competition. In this day and age where so many people are competing, and I use old school expressions like airspace and airtime. That's the fields that I was in. But when you're on social media and you're constantly scrolling up, downs, and sideways, getting that competitive advantage, honest to God, can make or break your career. So, Al, let me ask you right off the bat, before I take a couple steps backwards, what got you to follow through on the AI momentum while so many other people tend to be, obviously interested in using it? What got you to commit to going all in?
Well, I'd say a little thing called COVID. Maybe you've heard about it.
Vaguely familiar.
And basically, that gave me a lot of time to kind of reevaluate, direction I want to take, because that shut things down for the most part. And when there were speaking opportunities before, it didn't happen during that time period, and I had to change a direction, and I had to evaluate myself and the priorities, because that was the biggest challenge, is to come back from that. And so that inspired me to write a book, and hope and pray that, this, COVID would be gone at some point, which it did. But it gave me a chance to reflect upon, the direction I wanted to take. And, I knew that if I want to establish myself as a thought leader, I have to write a book, simply put, because there is no excuse. And that took a lot of time to do. I mean, it took literally over 2 years of my time to devote towards researching and evaluating, and also AI is constantly changing and such, so it's always something that, even the book comes out this year, next year I'm gonna have to come up with an edition, because it's always things evolving. But I wanted to give something as most recent as possible, so people take advantage of it and use it as a resource, so they become better at what they're doing and simply dominate the competition is what they need to do. This book will help them do that.
Al, before COVID and before the book and this trajectory, what was your career like? What was like I've gone through the bio, you've have a heck of a lot of have had a heck of a lot of name recognized clients. Walk me through, what was it like professionally for you prior to?
Prior to that, well, I mean, insurance sales was something that started back, well, over 40 years ago, I'd say, and totally different environment at that time. I mean, there was no internet. There was no caller ID.
Mhm.
Sometimes people say life was simpler then. You can reach people on the phone easier. And getting past secretaries and
Mhm.
things. And so that was something that was a different time period, and I kind of grew from that because the days of cold calling pretty much are over. I would say at this point with technology nowadays. So, but during that time period, it was kind of a heyday, I would say. And the insurance industry has changed and evolved since then. I was focusing primarily on Medicare sales and
Okay.
focusing on working with people who are turning 65 and giving them options, and that changed as well. Before that, there was only supplements available for Medicare, and now Advantage came out back in 2001, I believe, which allows people to a way to cover their Medicare costs, which has been something that has been a challenge because it's so expensive with healthcare rising and such. So I've really developed a way to help people understand that. I even wrote a book on it called Virtual Medicare 10 Costly Mistakes You Can't Afford to Make. And that's something that was really resonating well with a lot of people because they understand that sometimes if you make the wrong mistakes when you sign up, it could be permanent. And that's something that people don't realize that you really need to, knowledge is power and ignorance is not bliss.
Mhm.
You really need to really understand what you're getting involved with. So that was something that was, uh, part of my ability to learn about the industry itself and learn about things that help me grow as a professional.
Now, as a number of the people that watch and listen to my podcast are, I would say, of Medicare age, and are you still keeping up with the trends and that sort of thing, or is that something where because it's so fast and furious now, I'm just always curious, is like, are there ways to be able, based upon the speed of how the changes come, are there ways to be for people to be able to keep up with that? That was your profession. That, you know what I mean? To be able to do that. Um, how do people keep up with fields or industries that are moving so fast? And as you said, ignorance is not bliss. Uh, what have you seen in regards to ways just to be able to pay better attention?
Well, I mean, certainly, listen to podcasts,
Mhm.
to get the latest information on the topics of interest for you. There are great books out there. They're always
Mm.
coming up with information. Audiobooks are great to listen to because you can always absorb. You always got to keep learning. That's what I realized. You can't stop learning. A lot of people that just sit around and watch TV all day long and not really, do anything. And for me, when I'm in my car, I make my car university on wheels because I'm
Okay.
always listening to whether it's a podcast or an audiobook, and I'm always constantly trying to help ways to better myself. And that's what you got to do. When you finish college, you never stop learning, and if you do, you're just going to fall behind. So you really always got to be on top of things, what's happening in the industry, and that's what I do. I make it my goal is to listen to an audiobook every week if I can. If I do that, I got 50 audiobooks I listen to the whole year, which is a great way to absorb knowledge. I listen more audio than reading, I would say, is my thing to do. And podcasts like yours are great to learn a lot of information that I didn't know about, and the guests that you bring on are great to help, learn things that I never knew. So that's important.
I love that. And by the way, as I said, it's so funny because when I realize how important you speak of speaking authentically through AI and LinkedIn, when you were speaking of the sense of utilizing your car as a university on wheels. And I love the expression, first off. And secondly, it's interesting to me that, if I'm not mistaken, you've chosen a career path post COVID that helps people speed up their sense of efficiency and purpose, or if it's not speed up, it's optimize and save time.
Hmm.
You've taken, like, when you talk about the sense of utilizing audio podcasts and that sort of thing. When did you realize the importance of being able to synthesize data? Because I would imagine that's kind of a gift rather than the sense of just slopping together a bunch of knowledge. You say continuing to learn is very important. How did you realize the importance of being able to accelerate the process of using what you've learned?
Well, I realize where there are tools like, for example, ChatGPT, they are available to save you a lot of time and effort when you are creating, let's say, content.
Hmm.
It can also help you to, evaluate books that may be of interest.
Hmm.
It also helps create scripts for videos. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do that, and if you use the right prompts and use that in a way to get more fine tuned, you can find it to be a very effective tool to save you a lot of time, to save you a lot of the ideas that you can think of on your own. It can generate ideas that you may not even thought about, and that makes a difference because content is king on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
so you have to really be able to be giving value to whoever you're connecting with. If you don't do that, then it's just really not you're not going to make quality connections. I could tell you that people are not going to stick around. So yeah, using AI has been really a game changer.
So when you talk about things like I'm interested in the sense that you talked about your earlier career when before caller ID and all that sense of people say, hey, it was an easier time. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But what I'm interested in is I love the fact that you've got perspectives of both the most current technology and the older school sense of what things were like. Um, when did you become a believer in the capabilities? You just explained some of the capabilities of ChatGPT. When did you become a believer? And can you give me an example of something you were able to accomplish that you feel good about that resulted from utilizing that technology in a way that got you a favorable result?
Oh yeah. Well, again, as I mentioned, since I'm always listening and constantly learning about
Yep.
things, it wasn't like an immediate change. It was a gradual change, and I knew it was a direction that everyone was going in terms of artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
and how creating content. And for an example, I created this book, LinkedIn Advantage.
Mhm.
Created an audiobook version of that. Now, back in the day, when you did audiobooks, you'd have to hire someone who would be a voiceover person, or you do it yourself, which could spend a lot of hours, basically recording and re-recording, and you never get it perfect. Okay, well, with AI technology, I was able to actually turn the book using AI to create an audiobook version of my book, which is indistinguishable between a real person and an artificial intelligence. And that was a game changer. I mean, it really created 6 hours of information that if I did it on my own may take me 30, 40 hours. In addition, there's so much more cost involved. You
Mhm.
know, the expense of doing an audiobook can range anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. Depending if you want. Even some of the voice talents out there are very expensive. So it's going to be something you have to look at. You have to basically bootstrap and say, what you can afford to work with. And I was very satisfied with the results I got. So
Now,
that's
how long ago did you do the audiobook version?
how long ago?
Yeah.
I would say about 6 months ago. I would say.
Oh, cool. And I'm asking. I've recorded one audiobook, and I've actually recorded a few, but I was hired to do the first time I was hired to do a book from start to finish. And you brought up the 6 hour part. That's one of the things I say. So I learned in doing it. I didn't write the book at that time. Like I said, I
Right.
didn't write the book. I recorded someone else's.
Okay.
Um, I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm only telling you that because I do remember it was a lot of work.
Yep.
A lot of work. I remember when I was done,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and it was and the recording is fine, right? You know what I mean? It's the editing and proofing that
Yeah.
I was in disbelief how difficult the job became for me. And that's why you brought up something where I'm proud I've done them. I would love to be able to jump in right now and say, "Oh, no, synthetic, no, that's terrible. No, you should only use them." I know that's what I'm supposed to say, and I'm always like, when I got done, I remember thinking, I'm like, "I'm never doing that again." I have done it since, but I remember like, never.
Yeah,
Um,
exhausting.
yeah, it was. So it scares me with the advancements of that sort of thing. It obviously does. I mean, and I know plenty of voice actors, but the quality keeps improving. And
Yeah.
that's why I asked you how long, 6 months ago. And now it would be like light years better than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So did you get feedback from either book purchasers or your colleagues or whatever in regards to the sound of the audiobook?
Well, yeah, I got a 5-star review actually from a service, and I'm on in line to get an award actually at their event that they're doing back in September, I believe.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited about it because it's something I'm a proud about doing, and so it's something that if I can win the award, then I know that I'm going to be able to you know keep my head held
Mhm.
high. But I know the value that the information in there
Mhm.
is really great for people to learn,
Yeah.
and if I can provide it in a way that for example, people who are blind, for example, can listen to,
Mhm.
that's a great thing,
Mhm.
and there's nothing wrong with it. I think, but the writing is on the wall for people who are in the voiceover industry.
Right.
uh, That it's just a matter of time before they're replaced, and that's something. Even when it came to photography, and I was an amateur photographer back in the day,
Mhm.
or developing films and such, and
Mhm.
now everybody's a photographer. They got a camera or whatever that's a phone, and all of a sudden it's kind of diluted in a way. But I've learned since this time that you have to grow with the changes that are happening out there, and it's unfortunate some industries are going the way to the dinosaur because technology is making the change. AI is the future, and if you don't embrace it, you get left behind.
Yeah,
That's
and that's where I wanted to proceed with, because I feel as if the things that you bring to light, whether it was through the book or whether it is through the content on LinkedIn, I think these are really significant things. And I'm going to say I actually disagree with the sense that voices will become obsolete. I do. That's just my opinion. In the sense that I think that there's a personal touch that remains. However, what you've done, and I admire, is you take the technological advancements and you run with them. And I think that's the part that's really important. I think it would be foolish for anybody, including me, to act as if that's not real. It is real. And that's where, like, in terms of how you've been able to use this, I want to talk about your ability to be able to humanize, so to speak, LinkedIn with the content utilizing AI. Uh, what gave you the idea? Obviously, when you think about it now, it's like, well, why didn't everybody think of it? But I mean, what gave you the idea to run with that?
of using AI with LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Okay.
to
Well,
optimize LinkedIn, so to speak.
it's simple. I mean, I needed a way to be creating content on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
Newsletters every week is
Hmm.
challenging. And I've asked AI to give me, I don't know, 52 topics that would be of interest to certain industries. For example, it could be accountants, it could be attorneys, it could be
Right,
financial planners.
right.
um, and I would dedicate, newsletters for those particular things, finding a niche in that area, and grow with that by providing things that are pain points for those individuals.
Hmm.
That's really what you want to do. If you give value to someone, they will trust you, and that's really the whole idea behind it. So I use the AI technology to help, in developing content,
Hmm.
and then, of course, being a writer, put my own words into that so it looks authentic, and it made a difference in terms of me getting a lot more traction on LinkedIn, getting a lot more views and becoming, an influencer in a way to help to, raise my profile, which people reach out to me to get help, and I help them to also achieve that same level. So that's something that was important.
I love that. So you just said a moment ago when you were talking about the fact of you writing your own in terms of like on top of that to personalize it. I said humanize it, but I mean to personalize it.
Yeah.
How is it for someone that's starting out in terms of adding AI or increasing their leverage with AI? Um, how are you able to do it and, in essence, let it go, so to speak? Like, I remember for me personally, it was really difficult because I felt like it was an either or sort of thing. Like, it was either, okay, this is so robotic. It wasn't. But I'm like, well, this is so robotic. And I would be sitting there writing and rewriting. Blah, blah. And one of the things that for me was a challenge early, was the sense that it was actually taking me longer to do the content because I felt like I was putting it through so many rewrites. How were you able to do that where you got yourself in a position where you were like, literally, you could let go? Like, hey, this is good. This works for me. Um,
Well, the key thing is to create prompts, that are helpful so that you can use it in a way that it's coming in your voice, and to come up with 10, 20, 30 different types of prompts depending on the articles that you're creating, and use that on a regular basis to always refer to that. And that's something that will help you to become more customized in what you're want to create. You want to be able to create something of value and something that's not heard before. Same thing when you're posting on LinkedIn and someone puts a comment or post, and then
right.
you're saying, "Oh, thanks for sharing." Well, that doesn't cut it nowadays. Okay, you got to give more than that. You got to be authentic. You got to read what they're posting about, add something to that, and provide something that would help complement that person's post to elevate their particular post. Because the LinkedIn algorithm loves that. They love the fact that if you're helping an influencer make their post even greater, well, that's even better. And the key thing is to do that is within the first hour of what they're posting, or even the first half hour.
Okay.
You want to be on the top of it. If they got hundreds of people, followers, they're going to obviously going to respond to that. So if you can be within the top 10 people responding and add a value to what they're saying, with ChatGPT, it can help you do that by sharing the key points of what they're stating, and maybe adding your own, twist on it, which is great. That's something that makes a difference in getting traction on LinkedIn.
So I find for myself that it's one of these things where there has to be a level of dedication. You just said it a moment ago, which is, hey, thanks for sharing doesn't cut it anymore. I want to go back to the prompts, and then I'll follow up with that. I want to go back to the prompts. When someone is starting out and you say something as you just did, like, hey, to have 20 to 30 prompts that would, in essence, personalize it for you or your vantage point or the way that you communicate. What would be an example of a prompt or two that would be something, at least if somebody's like, I have no idea, like where I would begin in terms of prompts for myself?
I guess it depends on what type of comment that you want to do on when someone's posting.
Hmm.
So every situation is different. It's not one size fit all. So
Right.
I follow up on key influencers on LinkedIn, and look for things that are in their comments that I can expand upon that maybe they didn't cover. But I'd always do it and use a prompt to respond in a complimentary tone. you know you want to be able to provide a compliment for them in a way that, hey, not just for thanks for sharing, but this is an excellent point. I love the fact that you talked about such and such. And I was wondering if there's something else that you think that could be beyond what you're saying. Is there anything else that you think it might be more interesting? Ask a question, for example. That could be something that creates thought. And a lot of times the people who are following that individual may reply to you and the actual poster themselves. And all of a sudden, you're getting recognition that you never had before because of that influencer. And it raises the profile of the influencer because they like it as well. They says, hey, never thought about that. Great question. So these are things that you can take advantage of by just working within like ChatGPT or other similar platforms to use prompts to help you respond more effectively, so you get more recognition and build yourself as an authority on LinkedIn.
It's funny. From a selfish perspective, I look at like for myself with like one of the things when I'm speaking with people on podcasts, I really try hard not to ask the same old question or the suggested questions. It really that I don't know why it really matters to me. And I was about to ask you a question, not that would have compromised that, but I was going to ask you the sense that why is it so important to make the time when people are responding so quickly? But what you're saying is the algorithms are one of the reasons LinkedIn loves it when you're asking questions like elaborate questions or is there anything else questions where it's not just a matter of rubber stamping in regards to AI. And I'm guessing if I heard you correctly, that it's important or really important to bring your own individuality in to the equation.
Absolutely, it gives your spin on the take on it,
Mhm.
but do it in a way that it complements the individual. You don't want to go against what they're saying, but
Right.
add to their value,
Mhm.
and that's appreciated by the poster themselves because they'll get recognized because they'll have to respond to your particular, let's say, question that you ask, and all of a sudden the followers may also be responding to that, and that may grow within that actual post. All of a sudden, your post is getting a lot of recognition from their followers,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden they're checking out your profile. Who is this guy? And
Right.
whatever. And they want to reach out to you. All of a sudden, you're developing followers that share in the same, things that their initial follower that we're dealing with. So it's by association. You win by association.
I love the expression you win by association, and to me I'm comparing the older school to the most new school, realizing that if anybody is watching listening to this podcast a year from now, we'll need to redo this one too. But in terms of the advancements, when I think about it's the thing I'm always curious about is um, when did you know for you whether it was a success story you had or whether it was helping someone else or just realizing that you were headed in the right direction in the way that you navigate LinkedIn.
Well, simple. Every week LinkedIn, gives you an evaluation of your views that you received and the amount of responses that connections are. So, and
Right,
I've seen the growth as a result of it. And the key game changer for me was creating videos, that
right.
in 90 seconds average, that really sets me apart from what's out there, the competition, because they're not doing it,
Mhm.
And this is something that is essential. Post 3 videos a week is what I
Mhm.
do.
Yep.
And it's something that is, creates you as a thought leader. Something that because other people can post text all the time, but when you got something a video, it's compelling. People want to watch it. They want it. As long as you provide value within the first few seconds, come
Mhm.
up with a title which ChatGPT can help you with, and use that as a title for that particular video. They may sift through the whole thing and then decide, this is something that I want to follow. That could be helpful.
Let me ask you, in terms of that sense of the first few seconds. Now, being on your page, you have obviously branding clearly matters to you. There's a high level of consistency. How are you currently finding ways to keep yourself interesting in the first few seconds, especially when you're doing 3 posts a week over a series of years? How are you making that out? And I don't mean that to sound like a fawning question. I don't mean it that way. I simply mean how are you doing it?
Simple. I use AI to help.
Yeah, but this is where I want like, is it strictly in the prompts? Like this is where I want you to I'm peeling the layer back a little bit. Walk me through, if you would, in terms of how it's being done. You work with clients, and I am literally for my audience stealing a secret or two. How are you doing it? Like, say for instance, they listen, watch you, are interested in you. What could they do on their own before it's like, oh, I got to call? I got to call Al Kushner. What could they do on their own?
What they can do on their own? Well, they could certainly work on, optimizing their profile by getting a professional headshot would be a great starting point. You want to look professional, and that
Right.
really sets the tone right there.
Hmm.
Also, the backdrop that you have on your profile is also going to make a difference. You want to convey what your message is, what you're trying to share with people. These are important aspects of it, and I think also most important is getting recommendations from people. That's going to set you really apart, because people want to know is, are you who you say you are?
Hmm.
And that really is going to make a difference of your profile, getting noticed. I mean, that's something that I look for,
Hmm.
when I'm connecting with someone, is that, if I look at their profile, I'll look at, not just skills, but I would say any accomplishments they've had, any
Right.
volunteer work that they've done, which means that they're giving back in a
Hmm.
way. So that's something important. Not just the about page, but any type of articles they posted, videos, and then I look at what other things that they're dealing with. I mean, I look at, for example, the amount of followers that they have, and just
Hmm.
this, if they have about
It
4,000
matters.
followers, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not bad size either. But I also look at the, how is it in conjunction with the recommendations they receive. And if they have less than 10 recommendations, I kind of look at a little suspect from that individual and say that, there's something that doesn't really gel there. I mean, they should be getting a lot more recommendations if they're like, doing these podcasts and other things. So, not to make some points over there, but that's crucial. If you want to become a thought leader, if you want to get trusted, you got
Right.
to get people who work with you. I mean, I've got over 45 testimonials on my
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I keep growing with it. I'm proactive in doing it. Whoever I connect with, like we're going to be connected, you're going to get a recommendation from me. I hope I'll get one from you, and that's great. And you continue to grow like that. There are a lot of influencers out there that have over hundreds. But it works. It's something that people could say that's a real person that they get a testimony from. They go to the website, they've got it from somebody who's on LinkedIn, not just some imaginary person who could say anything they want. So that really creates recognition. You can become a thought leader, become trusted. That's what it's all about. If you don't gain trust on LinkedIn, you're really not going to get far on that platform.
Al, you just taught me something already, which is the quantity. Like, so it never crossed my mind. The number of testimonials, honest to God, like I know I don't have 45. And by design, like I really believe that, or recommendations, I mean, that's really interesting, that perspective, and I like it. Meaning the sense of that you really should have a large quantity. Also, what you said, which I liked, which is the reminder that they are of a higher value on, say, certainly on LinkedIn. But what I mean is a less biased sort of vehicle than your own website and what have you. So to me, that's really interesting.
You can
That's
also incorporate that into your website as well. So if you have a testimonial
Mhm.
on your website and it was given by someone from LinkedIn, well, you can,
Mhm.
create a logo and, create a link, and
Right.
they can share it and reach out and click on it. That's a real person, and they can ask, hey, did you work with John? Was he helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
and that's what you want. So there's no excuse not to do that. Whoever loves working with you or had a good,
Mhm.
good relationship, nothing wrong reaching out to them. And that's really the key thing is, and I help show people how to do that, how to reach out and get recommendations and just make it part of, your transaction with people. And before you know it, you'll get a lot more on testimonials, you'll get a little more trust, get a lot more business that way. That's really
I
good.
feel like, to me, that's time worth navigating. And so I literally thought, oh, I'm laughing at me, not at you. Oh, three testimonials. Oh, that's good. And just the explanation. This is why I think it's important to have conversations, because, like, there's so many things that can be optimized, but I always believe when I'm speaking with people, thought leaders, like I said, brand experts. And by the way, before I continue, it's a weird question because I like it. But where did what's the affinity to the black and gold colors in your brand?
Um, well, it's a good question. I would say that gold, of course, is a premium type of feel to it.
Hmm.
And the black just seems to be like a neutral color, but it's a powerful thing. When you think of black, you think about funerals. You think about or black cocktail or events
Black
and
tie, black, right? Exactly.
yeah, tuxedos. I mean, you
Okay.
go to these events. What do you see at the Academy Awards? Women wearing gold dresses, men wearing black suits. I mean,
Mhm.
this just seemed to be a theme that resonates with me. That is about bringing of a premium look. That's
Mhm.
what you want.
You've
So
carried it over to the book. In the one with you've got the white collar background and behind it, but you use that brand. I think what I realized, like I said, you taught me something in regards to the quantity of testimonials. But I think why again it's so important to have these conversations is so many people are looking for so many different things, and when you have such a limited time, like you talked about, the sense of you're needing to hook somebody in the first few seconds at most
yeah.
of the content of the video, you get so little time. It's weird what people are drawn to, and you never quite know. And that's why I think it's great to have every base covered. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's like, I bring up color because I notice it. It doesn't mean it's more important, and it doesn't mean any color is better or worse than another. At least from my vantage point, I just notice them.
Yeah.
I just simply notice them. And for myself, it's like that's the kind of thing that I find really important. And so I think in terms of when somebody says to you, if they ever say it to you, which is the kind of, oh, LinkedIn is getting so tough anymore. And you'll hear people talk about, oh, well, it didn't use it used to just be business. Now it's not. And oh, it's so diluted and so this. What do you believe that it still has the impact that it did?
Oh yeah, it's definitely impactful, but there are people on there still treating it like Facebook, you
Right.
know, posting things that are, narcissistic by any means. I mean, what they drank
Mhm.
for the morning for coffee, or they're taking these photos of themselves that are like ridiculous that should not be on LinkedIn. I mean, you're not providing value, you're only talking about how great your Lamborghini looks, or, oh, well, here
Yeah.
I'm in France and whatever,
Mhm.
It's all bullshit, okay? And people
Right.
realize that and they're going to unfollow them, and that's really what people don't realize, that you got to create value. You got to give something. You got to give more than you take. And that's really what it is. And that's how you're going to be succeeding on LinkedIn. Is it still a platform that's relevant? Absolutely. It is something that is going to be growing. I mean, it's owned by Microsoft, so it's
Yep.
obviously not going to go away anywhere else. Not going to be bought out by someone. But the fact is that if you're in business to business, that's the platform you need to be on.
Mhm.
If you have to choose one platform compared to Instagram or Facebook, I mean, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, that's the way to go. But you have to really, treat it like, with the time it deserves. Don't kind of, a lot of people, for example, just post and ghost. And they do,
Mhm.
hear from them, and
Mhm.
that's it. And that's not a way to deal with that. Or other people who connect with someone and they pitch slap them. I don't know if you heard of that terminology.
I'm going to ask you to elaborate. Um,
It's simple. Well, as you know, pitching and slapping is basically, simply put, like, I know someone was reaching out to me to do a podcast.
right.
The fact was is that, hey, I'd like to interview you for my podcast. And
Mhm.
the fact was is that he didn't care what I had to say. All he did was he gave me a few, said, tell me about yourself. And then he cut me off in 30 seconds, says, let me tell you what I do. Okay. I'm a social media person. Okay. And I can get you on all the radio programs you want to go on. So go on my podcast and I'll show you how I can do that for you. He was just literally pitching me, and he was walking his dog while he was doing it. He was on the phone.
Right.
Don't forget the background noise. But the fact is that if you pitch slap someone, as soon as you connect with them, they're going to turn you off. I mean, they're going to unfollow you and unfriend
Yeah.
you. cases, that's not the way to do it. You really got to get a relationship, got to be developed, and you got to give value to whoever you're connecting with. When I connect with someone, I like to give something of value, like a PDF of an article
Mhm.
that may be of interest, or something that thought would be shareable. A lead magnet, which is great. To educate people on topics that are pain points for them. So.
Pain points and engagement and problem solving and simply listening to people. This is why, like, I think it's important because I know more and more people that again are getting tired of this platform. I don't know another one that does the job that this platform does. I simply don't. So selfishly, I look for ways to just keep differentiating myself. You said something earlier, more just curious, but I'm always like length of time of videos. You said I post, if I heard you correctly, 3 90-second videos approximately. I know you're not cutting off at a hard stop, but what had you settle on that length of time?
Well, the research has shown that people's attention span, for example, if you go beyond 2 minutes, I mean, they kind of drop off. It really is there. So, take a look. Look at a movie trailer, like for example, Tom Cruise has a movie coming out, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't grab you in the first 30 seconds. I mean, that's it. You're not going to watch it. You got to see
Well,
him.
with Mission Impossible, the latest one, it's like, for God's sake, you know it's going to grab you. Thank God, and anything he's in, it tends to grab you. But here's what you're saying is he doesn't take that for granted, and neither do they. So they still stack the deck to make certain that it grabs you in the first couple of sentences, which is kind of cool. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Um,
yeah, it works. So,
what I was asking more is the opposite, which is there are others that have like made suggestions to me about, hey, your videos, me. My videos are all under a minute. And
mhm.
again, I'm not setting rules or boundaries, but I'm always curious as to like how people come up with what works with them. I love the way you just answered that, which is, hey, the research has shown. So you keep taking the time to educate yourself as you've talked about throughout the whole program. Um,
Of course, you have to do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. From a consistency standpoint, and thank God you harp on that. Um, what would you say if nobody's done anything before? Or let's say, for instance, they're reintroducing themselves, and so that they don't take the risk, sorry, of being the post and ghost type that you were talking about, right?
Mhm.
How do you suggest people stay consistent and keep themselves in the
Well,
game?
the key thing is to, create, let's say, like a newsletter, for example.
Right.
And the newsletter should be about anywhere from 750 to maybe 1,000 words on the average.
Okay.
And what's unique about the newsletters on LinkedIn is that when they do post the newsletter, it
Hmm.
goes directly to their, on LinkedIn, they'll get notified, but also on email too, that they'll receive it. And a lot of times it doesn't get blocked like other newsletters. It gets through. Which is great. It's not considered like spam because it's coming from a reliable source like LinkedIn. So therefore, people are reading it more than they would if they sent it through their own corporate email address. So that's something that is quite unique with LinkedIn in terms of giving you an advantage. So if you're consistently doing it, once a week at least, this will be helpful because you'll start getting recognition. Your newsletter will be read, I think, more
Hmm.
because of the fact that it's getting through the spam bots and everything. And again, as long as you make it educational, not salesy, that's something that will make a difference. And people look forward to your next newsletter. I did one recently based on hashtags, and the importance of using hashtags
Hmm.
when you are creating content. And that's something that resonated well. And I sent it out to attorneys, for example, a newsletter, and how they can use those hashtags to create awareness and also build their brand. You know,
I love that. Hey, speaking of which, I'm also looking at one of yours that you geared toward accountants, and it's relatively recent. I just literally the other day, 5 creative LinkedIn post ideas for accountants, and back to what I was saying before, I love the fact that you remind me of helping somebody get to, say, the front of the line when you said that these tend to be opened more than if it's coming from your CRM or from your corporate website. I heard you correctly, right?
Yeah, when it's coming from LinkedIn, it gets a lot more prominence, particularly, let's say, through Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts and such, compared to, if you send it out, you know, directly to someone on your mailing list. They may not necessarily get that directly, but with LinkedIn, they seem to have a way to get through the spam filters and land in their box where they read it, which is great. And that's something that people look forward to every week, of getting that information. So a lot of times, sometimes it gets caught. Some of them do get caught up in spam filters or in other factors, but majority wise, it'll get through, and that makes a
It's
difference.
not perfect, but it's I've had my own go through a lot of spam. So, and I've used multiple CRMs. I think that's really relevant because I'm asking you to repeat it because I think I missed it, which is you had said a suggested number of words were
750 to 1,000 words
yeah.
should be what an article should consist of, which is pretty much what would take a person to read it 5 or 10 minutes of their time.
Yeah, but it's not nothing. And I admire the fact, like I'm looking at this recent one where there's a lot of substance in there. So I was going to say, I would imagine this is why you would lean into prompts and chat GPT and what have you, because if you're going to sit down and create from scratch 750 to 900 words once a week, this is why I imagine you make the great case for why you were using the advances in technology rather than, well, yeah, but that's not really me. That's,
Well, like I said, you use that as a base, but you put your own spin on it, which is the whole idea behind it. So I use that for the ideas for the article, and then I find a way that I'll put it in my own words that makes sense to people, and that really helps to create, authenticity, you might say.
And listen, selfishly, that's what we're all about here.
Yeah.
At Duffin Media and Duffin Coaching. I mean, that's the intention anyway. That's important. And by the way, that's a really significant point to me. So that's, in essence, why I wanted you here. You just answered in a sentence. That's terribly important to me. So I feel right away that you've delivered a heck of a lot of value. And I'm going to ask you this. What's the best way to find you in addition to LinkedIn, where your profile will clearly be? What's the best place to find you?
Well, my website, linkedvantage.com, which is one way. Of course, my book is available on Amazon and also on Spotify, so you can also get access over there. But, certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. That's definitely a way to do that, because I'm pretty much on there every day, and always looking for ways to connect with quality connections, so like yourself.
Listen, I really appreciate you making the time for me. Al Kushner, that was awesome. That's a ton of great takeaways in a relatively brief amount of time. Thank you for a really very authentic and productive conversation. Thanks so much for joining me on the show. It was great.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
100%. And folks, you just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and we will keep driving content through your front door. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, and we will certainly talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.